You ever just stop and wonder, how does your brain even do it? I mean, think about the millions of things you see and hear every single day. How does it decide what to keep and what to just let go? Well, today we're going to crack open one of the biggest ideas in cognitive psychology to figure out how that incredible process actually works.
Seriously, just think about it for a second. That smell of rain on hot pavement, or a song from when you were a kid, or, the face of someone you love. How does something so fleeting, something that's gone in an instant, get burned into your memory so deeply it can stick with you for your entire life? That is the exact question we're diving into today.
All right, so here's our game plan. First up, we'll look at this cool idea of the mind as a computer. Then we're going to take a trip through the three main stages of memory: sensory, short-term, and long-term. After that, we'll see how info actually moves between them. And to wrap it all up, we'll see why this model was such a huge deal and why it still matters. So, let's start with this big idea. Thinking of the mind as a computer. To really get a grip on how memory works, early cognitive psychologists came up with this really powerful metaphor, one that we still use today. They called it the information processing approach.
Okay, so what does information processing actually mean? Well, it basically breaks down our thinking into three steps. You've got encoding, that's like typing on a keyboard, just getting the information in. Then you have storage, which is pretty much like saving a file to your computer's hard drive. And finally, there's retrieval, opening that file back up when you need it. It's a great way to think about it. The mind is the software, and the brain is the hardware it's running on.
So using that framework, encoding, storage, retrieval, two researchers came up with this roadmap for memory. This right here is the Atkinson Shiffrin model from back in 1968, and it completely changed the game. It showed us that memory isn't just one giant filing cabinet in your brain. No, it's a journey. Information has to pass through a few key stages to really stick. So let's follow that journey, starting right at the beginning. All right, stage one, sensory memory. Think of this as the brain's super busy frontline reception desk. It's the first point of contact for, everything. Every single sight, sound, touch, and taste from the outside world has to come through this portal first.
But here's the really wild thing about sensory memory. Its capacity is massive. I mean, it's taking in so much data all at once, way more than we can possibly pay attention to. But, and this is a big but, its duration is ridiculously short. We're talking less than half a second for what you see, and maybe 3 seconds for what you hear. Poof, and it's gone. It's like a perfect photograph that just evaporates almost instantly. And honestly, that's a good thing. If we held on to everything, our brains would just be completely overloaded.
So what's the takeaway here? Almost everything that hits our sensory memory just disappears. It's forgotten. The only way for a piece of information to make it past this first stage is if it gets past a very strict bouncer. And that bouncer is your attention. It's the reason why you can be in a loud, crazy room full of people talking, but you'll immediately snap to attention if you hear someone say your name. Your attention system flags that one sound as important and gives it a VIP pass to the next level. Okay, so our information has gotten past the bouncer. Where does it go next? It lands right here in stage 2, short-term memory. You can think of this as your mind's conscious workspace or a mental workbench. This is where you're actively thinking about stuff right now. Now, this place operates on a totally different set of rules than sensory memory. Its whole job is to let you consciously process information. It's what you're using to understand my voice at this very moment. But here's the catch. Its capacity is tiny, and it doesn't hold on to things for long. If you're not actively using the information, it's gone in maybe 20, 30 seconds. You know that feeling when someone gives you a phone number and you have to repeat it over and over until you can write it down? That's you fighting against the limits of your short-term memory. And yeah, this is a big reason why true multitasking is, pretty much a myth. So just how limited are we talking? Well, this brings us to one of the most famous findings in all of psychology: George Miller's magic number. Turns out, on average, we can only hold about 7 things, give or take 2, in our short-term memory at once. That's it. This is literally why phone numbers are broken up into smaller chunks. It's a clever hack to deal with this built-in bottleneck in our brains. Once you know about this limit, you can start using tricks like chunking to get around it. Okay, but obviously we remember things for longer than 30 seconds, right? So what happens then? Well, if something is important enough, we have to move it from that tiny little workbench to the final destination, the brain's enormous, practically infinite archive. And that is stage 3, long-term memory. And folks, this is where the real magic happens. The whole point of long-term memory is, permanent storage. Its capacity, We haven't found a limit yet. It seems to be basically endless. Its duration, we're talking a lifetime. A memory that makes it here can stick with you forever. It's the total opposite of the other two stages. This one is built to last.
But don't picture this as just one giant messy attic full of random stuff. No way. This archive is incredibly organized, kind of like a library with different sections. You've got episodic memory. That's your autobiography, all your personal stories and experiences. Then there's semantic memory, which is like the encyclopedia section, all the general facts and knowledge you have about the world. And finally, you have procedural memory. That's the how-to section for skills like riding a bike that you do without even thinking.
So we've got the 3 stages down: sensory, short-term, and long-term. But how does the information actually travel between them? It's not magic. It doesn't just happen on its own. It requires us to do something. We need what are called control processes to manage the whole flow.
Okay, we already talked about the first one, attention. That's the spotlight that pulls something out of that flood of sensory info and puts it on your mental workbench. But how do you get it from that temporary workbench into the permanent library? For that, you need a different process, and it's called rehearsal. This is the hard work you have to do to make a memory stick for good.
And this is so important. Not all rehearsal is the same. On one hand, you have maintenance rehearsal. That's just simple brute force repetition. Think about saying a phone number over and over again. It'll keep it on your workbench for a little while, sure, but it's a terrible way to get it into long-term storage. For that, you need the good stuff, elaborative rehearsal. This is where you get smart about it. You link the new information to things you already know. You connect it to a story, a feeling, another fact. It's the difference between cramming for a test by just rereading your notes and actually understanding the material so you remember it years later. That deeper connection is what builds memories that last.
All right, we've walked through the whole journey, so let's zoom out for a second and ask the big question. Why does this model, which is decades old, still matter so much? Well, its real genius was that it completely changed how we looked at memory.
I think this quote from William Pollard just nails it. Information is a source of learning, but unless it is organized, processed, and available, it is a burden, not a benefit. And that's exactly what this model teaches us. Having a memory isn't just about having stuff stored away. It's about actively managing it. Without attention and rehearsal, all that information is just static. It's the processing that makes it useful.
And really, that's the bottom line. The biggest gift of the Atkinson Shiffrin model was showing us that memory isn't a thing. It's a process. It's not some dusty old attic in your brain. It's a dynamic, multi-step system. And maybe the most powerful idea of all is that it's a process we're in charge of. What we pay attention to and how we choose to think about things, that directly shapes what we remember. So that leaves us with a really powerful thought to end on. If memory is a process, and if we can actually control that process, what does that mean? It means we aren't just passengers in our own minds, we're the drivers. By understanding these rules, by choosing where to focus our attention, and by working to connect new ideas to old ones, we can literally become better architects of our own minds. So the question is, what are you going to build?